Thank you. I promised Lisa I'd take pictures.
Leah and her mom.
Good evening. Hey, I told everybody else, I might as well tell you too. We're adding a new business item, capital area preservation. We lent them $65,000 to move the upchurch place. It was a 2-year loan with no interest. After 2 years, interest started to accrue 4%. 2 years ended in October of 2019, so there is a little bit of interest due. The resolution is to just get the interest 60
School, you need water?
Randy's on the phone already.
I'll take some water. It says this way or it doesn't pour me water.
Oh, does it pour? All right, all right.
Are you sure you want him to? You sure you want him to?
He's got a big hand.
I didn't touch it.
Oh, that's why you're sick.
I didn't touch it.
You know what's going to happen. Look, so
Have you lost your manners?
I think,
After,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that Brett actually beat you. Thanks, Brett. Thank you.
Good to water.
I got something. All my goodies.
Oh, yeah. I give a lot of those away. Not sure my youth ever needs them. Looks at them, but
It's nice to have.
yeah, they can email or call.
That's right.
Welcome. Good evening. On behalf of our town council and staff, welcome to our scheduled town council meeting for January 21st, 2020. Welcome to those who have joined us on live stream via YouTube. I will now call the meeting to order. And I want to recognize a celebrity that is in the house, Mr. David Gant, Buncombe County Commissioner from 1996 to 2016. This is his first Apex Town Council meeting, and it's our councilman, Brett Gant's dad. So if you would please stand up and be recognized. All right, we'll go ahead and get started with an invocation by a member of our community. And I want to read this. The town of Apex values and celebrates diversity and inclusion. We see diversity as a strength that binds our community together. Inviting members from different faith communities to deliver an invocation at the beginning of our council meetings supports this unity. Recognizing that not everyone practices the same traditions, we welcome you to have a private moment of silence during this time. At this time, I would like to invite Asa Clark, who is a youth pastor at Apex First Baptist Church, to come up and deliver our invocation. Asa is doing a lot with our community, prospering our youth, and does a tremendous job. So Asa, if you would, stand right there. There's your invocation. Perfect, right there.
Thank you again, Mayor Gilbert. If everybody can just close their eyes for a moment. Today we say thank you. Father, we ask that you just allow this this town hall meeting to be one that is going to catapult Apex forward for not only my community, Lord God, but for everything that is here, Father God. We ask that today, Lord, you do something that is going to literally unite Apex and is going to unite us to be able to change so many different things in the country as a whole. There's so many crazy things that are going on, but today we just say thank you because we know that there's going to be great things that are going to start at this meeting. So we ask that all differences, all of these things are able to be worked through so that we can get to the best, and to the greatest things for this Apex community. We ask for unison, Lord God, in the community, and it will start here today. We say thank you. Amen, amen, and amen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, a few things before we get started. If you would like to follow along in our agenda, we have printed copies just outside that door on the podium. Feel free to grab one. Also, you can use your smartphone or electronic device and go to apexsc.org under the Town Council page under the Agendas tab. Also, if you plan to speak during a public forum or public hearing, please make sure you come to the front and see Ms. Donna, our town clerk, and sign up on the appropriate sheet. And please follow the public speaking rules and procedures as printed. I'm going to start with a presentation of a resolution declaring February African American Black History Month in Apex. And what we're going to do is share in the reading of this resolution. And I will start it off. A resolution declaring February African American Black History Month in Apex. Whereas Black History Month is an annual observance in Canada, the Republic of Ireland, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. And whereas historian Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded Black History Week in America in 1926 during the week of the birthdays of President Abraham Lincoln and former slave abolitionist Frederick Douglass. And
whereas North Carolina was one of the first states to observe Black History Week in its schools, and whereas during the bicentennial celebration in 1976, President Gerald Ford urged Americans to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout history, extending the week into a month. And
whereas since 1976, every American president has officially designated February as Black History Month, and whereas Governor Roy Cooper has declared February Black History Month in the state of North Carolina, and
whereas Apex, encompassing the community of Friendship, has a rich history of American Indian, Indigenous people, Tuscarora tribe, and where during the age of Jim Crow, their powwow brought together their white and Black neighbors who agreed to reject Jim Crow and embrace peace and friendship. And whereas in the spirit and strength of the friendship, Wops, Low End, Frogtown, Matthews, Feltonville, and Scottsgrove communities, Black History Month affords the whole community an opportunity to become more knowledgeable, in particular of the contributions of Black people to the physical and cultural progress and history of our country, state, and town. And
whereas such insight can strengthen the knowledge of all of our citizens regarding human rights and progress made toward breaking down barriers and building relationships, oneness, and strong sense of community. And whereas, as Americans, together, we can achieve the ultimate goal of equity and inclusion while rejecting any form of inequality and discrimination. And
whereas, valuing all people and respecting their experiences, we strive to understand and empathize with the struggles of our neighbors and celebrate our differences, resulting in a better functioning community. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s beloved community.
now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Apex, North Carolina, declares the month of February 2020 as Black History Month and urges all citizens to come together in our onward march toward dignity, justice, and equality for all. This, the 21st day of January 2020, signed by myself, the mayor of Apex. All right, thank you. We're now moving to our consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of any item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately.
Mr. Mayor, I point out to the council that for consent number 6, the contract amendment in front of you that was just finalized by our legal department.
Okay.
That's part of the documentation that goes along with that consent item.
Okay. All right. All right. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda with that change?
Second.
All right. Motion is second. Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right. That passed unanimously. We now move into setting the meeting agenda. We had the change of the add-on item to the agenda. Are there any other you want to specify? Is that what we're doing?
To my knowledge, that's the only one, Mr. Mayor. So as it pleases the council, as new business number 3. And the item is a motion to approve a resolution to forego collection of any interest due under a loan agreement between the town of Apex and Capital Area Preservation. Just ask you would hear that under new business, if that's your pleasure.
Okay.
Motion approved with the add-on item.
I second it.
Okay, motion second, discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passed unanimously. We have an agenda. All right, we now move to time of our public forum. The public forum allows the public an opportunity to address the town council. The speaker is requested not to address an item that appears as a public hearing scheduled on the regular agenda. The council, thank you, will listen but not act upon the forum comments at this meeting. A friendly reminder, 3-minute time limit for each speaker. You will notice a series of lights for you to follow in those 3 minutes, green, yellow, and red. At red, you need to be rounding third base and coming to home and closing out your presentation. So I have my public forum sign-in sheet here, and we have 4 people signed up. Okay, very good. If I could have Eric Kalem, is that right? Kaylin, okay. Sorry about that. Welcome to start.
Good evening. My name is Eric Kalin. I live at 2692 Beckwith Road in the White Oak Creek community. I'm here for another round of roundabouts on Aspenwood Road. You should have a copy of this handout. 2 weeks ago, a neighbor of mine stood here and recommended removing 2 roundabouts on Aspenwood Road. These are marked on the handout with red dots. One is at the intersection of Beckwith Road, and the other is at the intersection of Silverdew Court. Because of all the developments underway in our neighborhood, it's premature to remove these roundabouts. For example, the town of Apex has approved the Ellsworth subdivision just north of my community. As shown on the handout, Aspenwood Road will extend into that community where it will intersect with Roberts Road and another street. Eagles number 12 is right across the street from 2 entrances to my community that have the roundabouts. The complex of a gas station, car wash, and convenience store is pending approval by the town of Apex. Green Level Church Road is slated to grow from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, according to the Apex Transportation Plan. Finally, Toll Brothers is still building in our community and will be until at least next year, when they plan to turn the Homeowners Association over to residents. 2 weeks ago, my neighbor mentioned that the roundabouts can be hard to see in the dark. Last month, Apex added signs and reflectors to the roundabouts. Let's give that some time to work. By the way, the street light right next to the roundabout at Beckwith Road has been out for months. Fixing that might improve the visibility. 2 weeks ago, my neighbor told you regarding the removable roundabouts that, quote, homeowners met at our annual meeting in November and voted unanimously to request this action. There was no advance notice to the roundabouts that the roundabouts would be discussed at the annual meeting. Only 68 of the 244 homes that have closed were represented. That means over 70% of homeowners were unaware of the vote being taken and not even present for the meeting. Before we even consider removing these roundabouts, I suggest that we wait and see how the traffic changes during current developments and give us homeowners a chance to get our act together. I'm working on that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kaler. All right, next speaker, Ms. Leah Craval. Please give us your name and address.
My name is Leah Cravat. I live on 2429 Castleberg Drive, Apex, North Carolina. Since January 2019, Apex High School has had 6 threats of gun violence. None of them ended in violence, so we assumed they were hoaxes, or did someone chicken out, or come to their senses, or failed to get their hands on a gun. Those threats disrupted our school days and should not be happening. My principal failed to address the issues, so our community must. We need to make people understand just what an impact gun violence and violence in general has on us all. School threats are not funny. They are cruel. People will take them seriously and not be able to focus on what they need to do in their class. We propose hosting a town meeting for the Apex town community and inviting all of you and our other local representatives and senators to come and speak about the impact of gun violence threats and gun violence itself. I would also like to include a psychologist or therapist and Apex Police Chief Letney. We would like you to seriously consider supporting this town meeting. We propose utilizing a large space, perhaps the Halley or another venue. We propose inviting the entire community, students, parents, school administrations, and teachers, town officials, and the general public. As Students Demand Action volunteers and Moms Demand Action volunteers, we will do the advertising and secure the speakers. We would like you, Mayor Gilbert, and esteemed town council members to help us secure a space and officially sponsor the event. We students should never be afraid to go to school, and our school days should not be disrupted, either from a real or a hoax threat. I will graduate high school on Friday, but I don't want to leave my fellow classmates feeling insecure and unsafe. If any gun violence ever occurred here, and I hadn't done everything I could to prevent it, I'd never, ever forgive myself, and I imagine you feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah, for sharing your passion. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next speaker, Mr. Larry Harris, Sr.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council.
Good evening.
My name is Larry Harris. I represent the Friendship community. I live at 2929 Evans Road. I'm here to speak to the council regarding the erecting of historical markers at our historical iconic Rosenwald Schools, named and called such because of the philanthropy of Julius Rosenwald, a German Jewish immigrant who partnered with Booker T. Washington, a slave out of Virginia who traveled to Alabama, Tuskegee, Alabama to be exact, to establish a college of learning at Tuskegee called the Tuskegee Institute, famously known as Tuskegee Institute. I want to point out to you this afternoon some very interesting things about the Rosenwald School. They're iconic and they're fast disappearing from the American landscape. I bought some pictures because a picture is worth 1,000 words. I'm going to point out here, first of all, that this is the Friendship School, a one-teacher school that was built in 1923. The Friendship community raised money in a cooperative effort with the Rosenwald philanthropy to split 50-50. And oftentimes it was money, it was labor, it was material that the community contributed to the match for the building of the schools. So this school is about 1/8 of a mile from OUS 1, which was the main thoroughfare from Maine to Florida, down Friendship Road. And I brought some of the people from the community here. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about the Rosenwald Schools. These two gentlemen, between 1910 and 1930, approximately 20 years, built 5,457 schools for black children who didn't have schools to go to. In North Carolina, there were more schools built out of the 15 states that was able to get the schools. And Wake County has 27 of such schools presently on grounds and sites, but not the buildings. The buildings have either been dilapidated, destroyed, taken down, and or otherwise destroyed. So we want to get these markers up so that the importance of our history will not be lost forever in time. So this would be the Friendship School. This is the Tension Road School that currently is in operation, but the school itself is destroyed. It's a beautiful building. The schools were for one-teacher schools, two-teacher schools and whatnot. Now, I've got the stewards here, the two steward sisters. Their parents, stand please. They gave the land for the Tension Road School. So I want them to be recognized there. Also, this school is a school in New Hill that was bought by Mr. Wilson, Clyde Wilson, and he's seen that in that picture, but that school is burnt down. So it's important that we get busy to recognize these schools and recognize these history. So I strongly urge you, and I hope you agree with me, that it's an important thing. If you do this thing, it'll make you proud in the years to come, I promise you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Thank you, sir. I would now like to call up Cricket Thornton, please.
Hello. Cricket Thornton, 3424 Vireo Court, Raleigh. We are coming back to report how well our 5K race went in the town of Apex. So I'm just going to read this because I get nervous. Hello, Town Council members. We wanted to return and report back on how well our Temple 5K run went and show our gratitude for allowing this event to happen. Our Temple 5K Family Fun Run was held last year, September 2nd on Labor Day. It was created to help celebrate the reopening of our beautiful temple, which had been closed for nearly 2 years. It had an impressive turnout of over 600 participants. The majority were families who strolled the 5K together with their children in tow. As requested by your council, we moved the start time up an hour from 9 a.m. to 8 a.m. We placed 14 approved Greenway trail signs throughout the Greenway at the locations provided by the Apex Parks and Rec 1 week prior to the run as instructed to notify the neighbors of the 5K, and we removed them within an hour of the completion of the event. We then walked the course afterwards twice with trash bags, leaving the Greenway cleaner than we found it. The Apex Police did an awesome job at ensuring the safety of our runners. We had 5 off-duty officers that were assisting us, notably 2 being at the 2 street crossings and 1 on bike on the Greenway. And the kids had a great time getting high fives from them as well. There we go, right there. So it turned out to be a lovely fall morning with nothing but smiles on sweaty faces as everyone crossed the finish line. There were no major injuries or accidents worse than a scraped knee and a slightly dehydrated participant who saw one of the 2 medics that were on site. Reports from the runners said that there was not an issue with overcongestion on the Greenway. While it was full at times, it was still used by the locals. My own mom chatted it up with a Greenway neighbor who came out to go for a walk at that same time. Many families thanked us for this opportunity to be able to train and run with their children. Not all races are suitable for families or are just too expensive to attend. Ours was a free event open to the community for the sole purpose of improving our health, making memories with our kids, and enjoying the temple once again. We are so incredibly thankful to you all for granting approval for the use of the Beaver Creek Greenway. It proved to be a perfect path for us to be able to ensure the safety of our runners and families while clocking the perfect distance of 5K from the local elementary through the Greenway and ending at the temple. We wanted to report back as you suggested to show the success of the event, as it was the first of its kind, we know, on your Greenway. And then see if you had any questions or concerns for us about that we could help you fill in regarding, your own analysis of how it went on your site. So thank you again for your support and for all you do for our lovely town.
Thank you for sharing your success, and thank you for holding that. You did a great job.
He practiced a few times. All right, thank you.
All right, we'll now move into our public hearing time of the meeting. And I do want to remind you of the speaking participation rules with public hearing. I'm here to make sure that we run an efficient meeting and the meeting remains orderly, so please respect each other, be courteous, and we want to make sure we hear everybody thoroughly, okay? All right, so we'll call for the first item, public hearing 1. It is an annexation number 672, consideration by Diane King.
Excuse me, good evening, Mayor and Council. I have the pleasure of introducing this annexation. This was something that a lot of staff members worked on, and I want to give special recognition to Sean Purvis. He did a phenomenal job, I'm serious, with this project, which honestly normally probably would have fallen to someone in my department, but I can't tell you how thankful we are that he took this and ran with it. This is an annexation for the Irongate neighborhood for most of it. You can see the Irongate is located in the corporate limits currently, north of US 1 and next to Tingen Road. This is a neighborhood that was immediately outside the town limits, and these homes received their water from neighborhood wells. And in 2018, the neighbors approached the town about receiving water services, as many of their wells are failing. The neighbors predominantly low to moderate income households, so the town was able to qualify for community development block grant funds through Wake County. And these CDBG funds cover the cost of the water line construction. And all 24 households and 6 of the 8 remaining properties, you can see the 2 that are cut out, everybody else signed on to ask for annexation. This is a voluntary petition in order to be eligible for water services. The approval of this annexation will allow the town to proceed with construction, which we anticipate beginning in early February. And staff does recommend approval of this annexation.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, at this time, I'll open the public hearing for this item. According to my sign-in sheet, we have no one here to speak on this item, so I will close public hearing and refer the matter to council for discussion and possible motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
I'm going to chime in and say, I think it's not always a day when your job as a public servant allows this kind of win-win for everybody. So I want to echo the shout out to Sean for the hard work and all the staff on this.
Any other discussion? I do want to add, being familiar with the Irongate subdivision, being obviously a lifelong resident here, this is a great win for everyone. So I thank Sean also for his great work in this manner, and it's a great day for us. So thank you for presenting. So motion second, discussion. I'll take the vote and call the vote now. So all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passed unanimously. We'll move on to public hearing number 2, annexation 683, consideration for annexation.
Okay, this annexation is located at 7109 Beaver Trail. This is located west of Kelly Road, just south of where Kelly Road Park is located. This is an existing single-family home. Robert and Amy Rossi are the property owners. It contains 2.87 acres, and they would like to get town services, including water and sewer, and so they're petitioning for annexation. Staff does recommend approval.
Thank you.
Diane, is this the first of several of these houses, do you think, going through this process? Or?
Well, they have a sewer easement basically through their backyard, so wherever sewer's available to tap onto, people are going to annex. I'm not exactly sure where the water line is in relation to the other properties. You can see that they're adjacent to this parcel here. I'm not exactly sure where the water line, or the sewer line, excuse me, is going, but we do see this in these neighborhoods that are in Wake County. When folks get access to town services at a reasonable cost to tap on, they typically will do it. It's very expensive to maintain wells and septic fields.
Thank you. Any other questions for Diane? All right, I'll go ahead and open up public hearing. I have no one signed up, so I'll close it now and refer the matter to council for discussion and possible motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passed unanimously. We'll move on to public hearing number 3, rezoning number 19CZ12, Consent Lane PUD. Presenting is Sarah Rayfield.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'll be presenting rezoning case 19CZ12, Casena Lane PUD. This is a 1.74 acre site located here in this general area of Apex. Zoom you in a little closer here. This is the site that we're looking at. This is a total of 3 parcels. Again, 1.74 acres. So to the west, we have West Haven Apartments. To the north, we have Perry Hills, single-family residential. And to the east, Perry Farms, and down here to the south, Bradley Park and Bradley Terrace. The current zoning of the site is residential agriculture, which are the dark green parcels, and this tiny sliver here is zoned high-density single-family residential. The proposed zoning is PUD, Plan Unit Development Conditional Zoning. The 2045 land use map recommends medium-density residential in this area. The proposed zoning is consistent with that. We'll get into those details next. Oops. Just going to bring you back here as I talk about the site. So the subject properties are located here on the northern termination of Casena Lane. As you'll see here, this is Casena Lane. And so currently, this road stubs here to the site, and these are the subject parcels. 2 of the properties are vacant and wooded. The other property contains an existing structure, residential structure. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on May 29th, 2019. The full report is located in your packet. So again, just showing you the existing structure here. The 2045 land use map identifies this as medium density residential. It is consistent with that. And before I go into the whole host of proposed zoning conditions associated with this PUD, I will get to this in detail later, but I do just want to point out as we go through these that this project is proposing 100% affordable housing. So that will be important to keep in mind as we go through some of these zoning conditions. Permitted uses are single-family, utility, greenway, parks, active and passive, recreation facility, and accessory apartments. The maximum density is 5.8 units per gross acre with a maximum of 10 residential lots. Max building height is 36 feet. Minimum building setbacks are 20 feet for the front, 5 feet for the side, and 10 for the rear. Minimum lot width is 33 feet. Again, keeping with the affordability component. The UDO allows for a maximum of 70% build-upon area, and that PUD will not exceed that amount. And as I meant to point out earlier when we had the aerial up, there is a stream here that runs through the site, so this area here shaded in various shades of gray is not developable. So you'll see that what we're talking about from a developable standpoint is here, which is certainly less than that 70%. Perimeter buffers, what we're looking at for what's required and what was proposed is going to also address the affordability components. What is required is a 15-foot type A along the west, a 10-foot type B, and a 20-foot type B along the north. Eastern property boundary would be a 20-foot type B, and to the south, a 15-foot type A. What is proposed is a 6-foot solid wood fence along the north, west, and south, and a 50-foot stream buffer here to the east. The intent of the reduced perimeter buffers is aimed at the affordability component, and that is to reduce the perimeter buffers in order to reduce what would normally be in an HOA maintained area. By reducing what is HOA responsibility, reduces the overall cost to the future homeowner. The PUD is providing at least 20% of the total area in resource conservation area and landscape buffers. If the residential single-family lots are mass graded, then the project shall dedicate an additional 2% RCA. Please note that this application was submitted in June prior to the UDO amendment changing RCA requirements to 5% for mass graded subdivisions. Again, all of this is aimed at affordability achievement. Our architectural standards, you'll see 1 through 7 are listed in full detail in your staff report. Several of these are typical of what we see. There have been some, again, aimed at affordability, achieving that. So now I will get into the affordability component that I keep highlighting and promising. So I'm also going to pull up this slide here, and that's just to give you an idea of when we're talking about affordability, what's workforce housing and what is affordable housing. So we're talking about area median income in Wake County. You'll see here, this shows you for an individual what is affordable, and that is at 60%, which is down here in this area median income range, and workforce up here at 80%. And for a family of 4, we see those corresponding numbers over here. And who we're talking about are our first responders and our community workers. And this just here is to give you an idea of Raleigh area incomes. And this is information we acquired in 2019. So the affordable housing provision that's included in the zoning conditions is that 100% of the dwelling units developed on the property shall be set at a price that on average is affordable to a household with an annual income of 70% of the area median income for the respectively sized household in the Raleigh MSA as determined by the Department of HUD. So while we currently, Town of Apex, do not have a affordable housing policy in place, this is the first project that is coming for us with 100% affordability. And again, just to give you an idea of this is who we're talking about, our first responders, our teachers, and looking at 70%, most of these workers can afford these units on their own. Take you back here to the site. This project does propose to extend public facilities to the site, water and sewer being extended here through Casena Lane. And these are just some of the proposed elevations. As I said, there's a full listing of the architectural conditions in your staff report. These are consistent with those. Take you back here to the overall site layout. Looking at pedestrian connectivity, Casena Lane PUD does not include proposing sidewalks on both sides, and that is because existing Casena Lane does not have sidewalks on either side. So that is aimed at one, keeping a consistent pavement through the site, as well as reducing development costs also associated with the affordability component. So as I mentioned, this is the current terminus of Casena Lane. What is proposed is to extend it so that it stubs out to the property north of the site for future development. And that is consistent with UDO, what we would look for at master subdivision plan. As this plan is consistent with the Apex Transportation Plan, and what we're looking at here is approximately a 200 feet extension of Casena Lane. So it's right at 200 feet, extending that. Parks and Rec Cultural Resources Advisory Commission, this is less than single-family detached units, and therefore the project was not required to be reviewed by them, and fee in lieu or land dedication will be required. Planning staff recommends approval of the Casena Lane PUD with the conditions as offered by the applicant. The planning board heard this project at their January 13th meeting and unanimously recommended approval. Approval of this rezoning is reasonable because the proposed planned unit development conditional zoning district is consistent with the medium density residential land use classification of the 2045 land use map, and the proposed rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest because it will allow for the development of affordable infill single-family residential development that will be compatible with the single-family uses to the north, south, and east. The proposed rezoning will also maintain the character and appearance of the area, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions for
Will the driveways be built in a way that sidewalks could go in later on this? Is that a requirement?
No, it would be a regular residential. But it would be, if the town wanted to come in and put sidewalks within the existing right-of-way, that could be something that the town could look at. I believe that we have a long list of sidewalk gaps that we're currently looking at, and I don't believe that this is on that list. But the residential driveway dimensions would need to meet what is currently in the UDO. There's no provisions to reduce those.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right. I think some driveways around town that there's no sidewalks it appears there's a way that they can be connected to sidewalk in the future. So that kind of future change could be built into the
It would be
system now.
Right, it would be within the existing right-of-way if sidewalk were to be looked at a future date and time.
Can I ask you about the buffer on the right there?
Sure.
I thought I heard you mention it's 50 feet. I was under the impression it was 100 feet. The total stream buffer between the developable area to the end of the property line.
It's a 50-foot buffer from here. And that's the...
Yes. Okay, I see what you mean.
Sorry, not cumulative, yeah, I had to zoom in.
Cumulatively, we're looking at roughly 100 feet from the back of one potential unit there to the end of the property line near the neighbor's other side.
I believe that is correct, yes.
So it looks to me that the total RCA here is going to be well above 35, 40% or something, just based on having that all be the RCA. It's relatively large.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. The other question that came up a lot in discussions about this had to do with the stormwater runoff rules that we have in place. And my understanding from staff is that this site is exempt from needing a pond. Can you talk me through what exactly is the rule there and how does it apply to this property and what decisions were made as a result?
That would be a question that would be best for our stormwater staff. Yes. Thank you, Mike. Great timing. That's an area I'll get myself in trouble. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Mike Deaton. I'm the Director of Water Resources. To answer the question, the UDO Section 6.1.3 specifies any land development that disturbs less than 1 acre is exempt from the UDO 6.1, which is our stormwater control section. So I believe the applicant is proposing less than 1 acre of disturbance, thus qualifying for exemption.
So does that mean they don't have to consider runoff at all, or just that they don't have to build a pond?
They have to still consider runoff by sizing pipes, by providing outlet protection for the pipes, but from a stormwater BMP standpoint at SEM, they're not required to do that.
So there's still a plan that the applicant talk about, but
yes,
yeah, it's not like they just didn't consider it at all.
Right.
Okay.
And since we're at a rezoning stage, staff hasn't seen any of the engineering documents at this point. So.
Okay, thank you.
So when you say built upon area, does that mean basically the kind of the crosshatch area, and then there's if the non-crosshatched area is more than an acre, it will be built upon means the driveway and the house, basically?
Correct, yes.
And the road?
Roadways, driveways, your rooftops, that's built upon area. What I'm talking about is land development, or the amount of land disturbance. So the erosion control plan will specify a certain amount of land disturbance, and as long as that's less than 1 acre, then stormwater controls will not be required.
Okay.
So it's different from built upon area, though.
Okay.
So we're looking at impervious surfaces, correct?
Correct. That's from the threshold for needing SEMs. It's a land disturbance. It's physical grading of the surface of the soil or from the earth. The built upon area, that depends on the magnitude or the size of the ponds that would be required. But as long as they're disturbing less than 1 acre, your standard typical SEM would not be required.
And we did have a neighbor who had questions about drainage issues, and I don't know if Mr. Roach will speak to that. Okay. We do want to make sure that's, taken into account.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
What's going to happen to the structure that's on the property?
It would be removed.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll go ahead and open up public hearing at this time. Okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Applicant, come up. Mr. Roach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of Council, Jeff Roach, Peak Engineering and Design tonight, here representing Mr. Hector Koalas, who is the owner of the 3 properties that are in question. Mr. Koalas is in the audience tonight if there's any questions for him specifically related to the project as the property owner. I also do want to make one other real quick introduction as a affordable housing project. I'm pleased to announce that Bill Ahern is here. He is the CEO, president of the Habitat for Humanity, Wake County and Johnson County. He's here tonight. With the mayor and council members okay, I would like to do a real quick discussion with you guys, and then I'd like to actually have Mr. Ahern come up and speak to you guys instead of having him down. I think he's pretty far down the list, Mr. Mayor, if that would be okay, because I think understanding what Habitat is trying to do here, I think is very important for the area and the message that we're trying to get across with affordability. I want to start by thanking staff. I think Sarah did a great job going through all the details, answering some of your questions, and trying to get this whole thing put together. I do want to point out it is a 70% AMI, so it is affordable housing development. The first project that I know of in the 11, 12 years that I've been coming here that's actually proposed 100% of the homes to be 70% or better. So I'm proud to be part of this. I'm proud to work with Hector on it. I'm very proud that Habitat is working towards a contract to build these homes. Real quick, I want to go to the couple items that were brought up real quick before they kind of go off of my mind here. Mr. Gant, you asked about sidewalks. We're still going to build the roadway section exactly like any other development. So future extension of sidewalks will be available inside the right-of-way as they are built today. So that is an option, but it will come from Shackleton Road all the way up through Casena into this property if extended in the future. Okay, so it will be an option in the future to be added. The second one, Mr. Mahaff, you asked about the buffer. This is Mr. Deaton and I have spoken about this a couple times. This is a perennial stream down here, which requires a 100-foot buffer. It's a 50-foot state buffer with an added 50 feet variable width buffer on the outside, which will effectively provide about 100 feet from our eastern boundary or the creek line into the property where we can even start doing any grading work. So it will be an effective about 100-foot buffer width through there. And all that depends exactly where that creek is located. The second one, Mr. Deaton touched on the stormwater pond comments about 1 acre. Not having a pond on the site, that's probably the most expensive part of an HOA due every month, is preparing for that 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road when that pond has to be replaced. So reducing having a pond on site with such a small site, 1.7 acres, keeping that disturbance under an acre is, in this case, a great option. We've got a huge buffer on this side that will count for probably 35%. I think I looked at some numbers today, about 35% of the overall site is incorporated in that stream buffer, which we've left alone. Fairly large environmental swath through the property that we're leaving alone sitting over there. So that kind of addresses a couple of the questions that were brought up earlier. I do appreciate Mr. Deaton and Sarah answering a lot of the questions. With that, I want to touch on a couple items that were brought up either in emails or discussion with council members, as well as some of the discussions at the planning board meeting last week that I find fairly important. First of all, these homes are for sale. They are not rental properties. Habitat, as the future contract buyer, builder of the homes, part of the requirement is that it's owner occupied, not rental properties. They also have a right of first refusal to come back and repurchase the property when that homeowner wants to sell. So they will be retained as affordable housing in perpetuity. Second thing, Mr. Gant and I spoke about rainwater harvesting. We spoke about stormwater, what are the different options, and I'll touch more on that in a minute. Ms. Stallings. Tree replacements, there actually is no place on the lot to replant. All the land is either going to be right-of-way, 50-foot right-of-way, it's going to be lots, or it's going to be protected resource conservation area or stream buffers. So actually replanting is not something that we can actually agree to at this point. What we will do is I spoke to Hector beforehand, and Bill and I will talk after the meeting about seeking donations for additional landscaping materials, and then those landscaping materials can be donated to each lot and planted as provided. So not truly a replacement, but asking for donations for habitat to install in the future. So it's a different way to look at it, but still trying to address council members' concerns. Environmental protection area was brought up by Ms. Sherman on the planning board. Ms. Dozier actually also raised the question about it. Like we said, about 35% of the property is held in a large area of RCA. We're not proposing stormwater pipes through it. We're not proposing public works, utilities, or any grading or any work in the stream buffer, other than a small area right here, which is going to be in the road extension through here. It just happens to be where the buffer sets is right in the right-of-way line. So we're trying to be environmentally conscious when we build this as well and minimize those impacts. Reduction in the HOA dues long-term. By reducing the perimeter buffers, we reduce the land that the HOA actually owns. We don't do the stormwater pond. That reduces their annual fees for HOA or monthly dues for HOA as well. So we're not only looking at short-term, the entry into the market, but also the long-term viability of somebody being in an affordable house, not kicking them after 3 years because they can't afford to pay their HOA dues. RCA standards we touched on, 22% is required. We think we're around 35%, give or take. But there again, we haven't been in through all the engineering documents yet either. We haven't started into the final actually master subdivision design. That will come after the zoning hearing tonight, which I hope that we can get staff council support. Utility connections, everything's in Casena Lane. Casena Lane extension right now is just a stub street, no turnaround. The 200-foot extension will be extended to the northern boundary, Ms. Johnson's piece, at which point we will actually do a temporary turnaround, which will allow the vac truck, the garbage trucks, and emergency vehicles to actually have a place to turn around, versus right now they pull in the Casena, they have to back up to the 90-degree bend in Casena to get out of the subdivision. This will actually help. We're not increasing traffic because the vac trucks already come through, the garbage trucks come through, and all the vehicles that are coming through. The only additional traffic that we're adding are those 9 to 10 new lots. Bus routes were also asked about at the planning board meeting. I think the Go Apex route number 1 proposed 1 stop on Apex Peakway down at Shackleton, as well as 1 or 2 stops on Tingen Road as well. So there will be opportunities for bus stops on the western side of the property. It is a 1.74 acre piece of land. It's fairly small. We're excited to bring this to you guys tonight. By following the town's adopted master plans, the rezoning Casena Lane, in our opinion, is in the public's best interest, and I look forward to your support tonight. I am here to answer any questions. With that, I can either answer questions now, or I can invite Mr. Ahern up to do a quick introduction of Habitat. I'm here at your leisure, whatever you would like to do with me. Be nice. Please be nice.
We'll save it.
I just had one quick question about the drainage.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you just speak to that a little bit more?
Sure, and I apologize. I should have addressed that. Right now, what happens is the drainage comes generally from a northwest in this area where the cursor is and angles down. It shows it as Mr. Turley's property. I think it's Mr. Grasman. I always get it wrong. He actually purchased a property in August right next door, right here, and there is a storm pipe that punches diagonally across his property. Our proposal is to remove that storm pipe, collect the water down to this point here, and connect into the storm system that's already in Casena Lane. We are not going to change it once it gets into Casena Lane. It's an existing 24-inch pipe. It will go the exact same route that it's going. We are not proposing to pipe it directly to the creek, and what will actually happen is the creek in this area will actually see a reduction in how much our site, because think about it, this part of the property here is now coming south down and then across versus going to the creek and then following down to the back of those houses that are the concern. Now, just so you know, that we're a 1.74 acre site. The total drainage basin to this location is over 100 acres. So it's 1% of the total drainage basin, so an increase even to 70% built upon area, which is not feasible at this location, would have probably a very minimal, if any, noticeable difference in stormwater runoff numbers. So we have looked at it. We haven't gotten into the final detail and points and runoff numbers, but we have looked into it.
questions for Mr. Roach?
Let me see if I understand. The pipe that the drainage pipe currently near the Turley residence, or does that go directly to the creek right now, or does that dump into Casena Lane?
It ties into storm pipes that are in Casena Lane.
Okay.
And then it goes underground, down Casena Lane, and then, let me go back. I can. The easiest thing is get to the aerial, because that'll. So, Mr. Mahaffey, what happens is the storm pipe starts about right here with a flared end section, diagonals across the front of the property, and ties into an existing catch basin that is in Casena Lane. It then goes underground through storm systems to approximately right here, and then comes between the lots to the back of these lots and ties into the creek. That's exactly how it will stay. We are not proposing to change anything other than that angled pipe. We're trying to get it off of our neighbor's property. He has an easement there. It'll pick up a little bit of additional property for him. He can do his own plantings in it, get rid of a private drainage easement that's on his lot. And we'll still pick up the stormwater coming off of West Haven Apartments exactly like it is today.
Okay. So there really should be no change for the homeowners on the eastern side of Casena Lane in terms of stormwater, in terms of creek volume.
That's correct. That's correct.
Because it's being piped around them.
We're taking a little bit of water, without getting too far into the weeds, we're taking a little bit of water that right now goes straight to the creek and then down along the back of their property. We're going to bring that into Casena Lane and go between their properties in a storm pipe and outlet to the creek, just short of the crossing at Casena Lane. So it's close. I mean, it's about the same route. I can't say there's, like I said, 1 acre of drainage change is not going to have any impact on that creek that's back there.
I'm sure you thought about this, but that pipe, it can handle the additional impervious surface here without a problem. How thick is it? Is there anywhere in your capacity? Are there any concerns there about the actual quality, the size of the pipe that we're?
It's an existing 24-inch RCP now. We haven't gone into the exact numbers as to what it is, but we will look. We have to look at hydraulic grade lines anyway. We have to look at gutter spreads. So we feel confident the pipe size is appropriate for what our project will add to it, as well as what's already there now. So yeah, we feel comfortable with the minimal size of the lot. I feel pretty good about it.
And for the properties that are southeast, do you have any concerns there about drainage issues?
The ones that are south in this corner here?
Mm-hmm.
From our project, absolutely not. Simply because what's going to happen is the lots are either going to drain to the street and get picked up in the storm pipe, or they're going to go to the grass, about halfway back to house, and then the grass area will drain exactly like it does today. So I don't have any concerns about what's draining to the creek as well as what's being piped under, for a number of reasons. One is the size of the overall project is the first one. The second one is tying into the existing 24-inch storm pipe with a limited area that's there, that's draining to the pipe now. I don't have stormwater concerns with it.
I'm a little concerned about the buffer on the Turley. I keep calling the Turley residence. I know we've sold at this point, but it's what it says in the map here.
Yeah.
The one on the southern side of it. So instead of a buffer, which this homeowner would usually get, instead they're getting a fence there. And I understand that in the presentation it was to cut costs for the eventual HOA. Why not give that 15 feet, maybe deed it over to them, or deed it over to the Perry Farm HOA, and have them take care of it? Was something like that considered if it was really a matter of cost? I'm just concerned about that homeowner seems to be getting impacted pretty heavily here.
So as part of that, every foot that we give up takes away lots. So what we're trying to do is make it viable for both Habitat as well as the existing property owner to make it. It still has to be a viable project for Habitat to step up and buy this. So there are a certain number of lots that we're laying on the left side. By giving 15 feet to our adjacent property owner, takes away a lot, and now there's one less home for the affordable housing opportunity. So we feel that putting the fence in provides you kind of that screening that's there anyway. With any internal neighborhood, your neighbor is going to build a fence, so it provides the exact same buffering requirements.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Roach?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that.
Mayor Gilbert, Councilman Mahaffey, it's good to see you again, and for the rest of council, And for the record, I'm Bill Ahern, and I'm CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Wake and Johnson counties, and our business is at 2420 North Raleigh Boulevard, Raleigh. First, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, and more importantly, to introduce myself, because it's my hope you'll be seeing a lot more of me in the years to come as we deal with affordable housing. So on your agenda today is this rezoning request for a PUD on Kissena Lane. And as a condition of that approval is to make it affordable housing. And for that, I thank you for even considering this request. So I've been associated with Habitat for over 13 years. A number of those years was while I was a senior official with the Federal Reserve Bank and dealing with community redevelopment issues. But over those 13 years, I've heard a lot of talk about dealing with affordable housing and the crisis that continues to grow every day. But now, more than ever, I'm seeing that talk finally turn into action. More and more municipalities want us to come to the table to find solutions for affordable housing. And just this past week, and my staff met with 3 municipalities to discuss ways in which we could address this issue. So as we go forward, if there are opportunities to work with you, we would greatly appreciate those. At the core of the affordable housing crisis is that the housing prices are increasing at a much greater rate than incomes, and that is making homes much more affordable for many more people. From my perspective, the only viable way to address this issue is to build more affordable homes. And Habitat Wake County is one of the largest in the world in terms of a Habitat affiliate at building homes. We built, 2 years ago, we built 83 homes. This coming year, we're on track to build 60 more homes, and it's our intention to build even more. And we are seeing more and more opportunities to do that throughout the county, and to be able to potentially do that in Apex would be a real joy for us. At Habitat, we serve families in the 30 to 80% average median income range. And in your staff report, I was very glad to see that you put into context by highlighting that salaries of school teachers, firefighters, police officers, and even city planners are in this range, and they are eligible for Habitat homes. So with that said, we would love to partner with you, and how great would that be to find eligible families from Apex to put into these homes. So in conclusion, at Habitat, we're very interested in this property, but there's still much work to be done. We need to determine if this can be developed at a cost that can still make it affordable for our homeowners that would be eligible for this program. We are very hopeful that it will be, and that we will continue to work with those involved with this. So again, thank you for your consideration. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hagan. Ms. Roach, do you have anyone else? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for this matter, and I'd like to go ahead and call up Ingrid Colson, please.
Hi, I'm Ingrid Colson. Ooh.
Ingrid, before you start.
Okay.
Designated here, or you have indicated you have 4 people to speak.
Well, I know 1, 2, 3. Yes, 4.
Okay, all right.
For sure.
Okay.
Hi, the rest of my neighbors I met. Okay, I've been, all right, so my name's Ingrid Colson, 820 Shackleton Road. Mr. Mayor and Councilman, thank you for your time this evening. Also, thank you to each one of you who responded to my email and addressed my specific concerns. I have been to each house in Perry Farms. Of every neighbor that was home, and I have spoken to, the overwhelming majority share my same concerns. You will see that I have submitted a petition to you guys with 41 signatures of my neighbors who also share these concerns. I would like to give you a brief background for myself. I moved to Wake County 14 years ago. Of my 14 years in teaching, 13 of those years has been in Wake County. I bought a small townhome, fixed it up, and sold it in a few years. I moved to a single-family home, and over 9 years, I put in thousands of sweat equity hours into this home. For the last 4 years, I drove to work 1 hour each way in order to serve the students of the western part of Wake County. I am a recent Apex resident And once again, I have purchased a fixer. Wah, wah. I am, and so are many of my neighbors, concerned for a variety of reasons about the Habitat for Humanity development project being connected to Casino Lane. These houses will have a Tingen Road address, but connect through via Casino Lane. This makes no sense. It is my understanding, via a response from Mr. Mahaffey, did I say that correctly?
You did.
Thank you so much for your response, that the land needed to cut through the road for Tingen is not for sale. This is poor planning on the part of Apex. Apex needs to figure out how to cut the development through to the road of the addresses that they will be. Or maybe this portion of land is not best suited for the development at this current time. These houses being built will have a value of $170 to $190 according to the presentation at the planning board last week. I have been told by numerous people from the planning board and town council homes will significantly be smaller than current homes and therefore not affect our comps. The Habitat homes will be between 12 to 1,800 square feet. Our current homes start at 1,250 square feet. These new homes will be bigger than the current homes, yet still have values nearly $100,000 less than our current values. The comps for Perry Farms low end using my home, which is a fixer, are $278 as of Sunday, January the 12th. Lot sizes will have a width of 33 feet. The smallest lot width on Casina is 60 feet. We are asking that the houses share the same lot standards as current homes. These houses will have vinyl siding. The current homes have fiber cement siding, also known as hardy plank. We are requesting Habitat homes have the same standards of siding, also hardy plank. The Habitat homes do not have garages, that's my understanding at least. All but one of the homes at Casina has a garage. We are requesting that the Habitat homes have garages in order to have the same standards of our current homes. If houses can not be built to the standards of the homes in our neighborhood, then they need to be directly connected to Tingen Road. The drainage issue is still a concern. I appreciate the clarification questions as well. I do still share a number of concerns with that, but I would like to work with you guys and talk with y'all more about that so we can move on from there. Finally, I would like to respond to an email. For you guys, I would like to update you on an email correspondence. I was asked, what do you think is a viable solution to address this issue, meaning affordability of homes in Apex? I responded, and I quote, please connect these homes to Tingen Road, the actual address. Make it a separate development that does not directly connect to Perry Farms and therefore directly affect our value of our homes. This solves most of the concerns current Apex residents have. The response was, so isolating citizens by economic status is a solution to community affordability, ? And again, that is a quote. Mr. Gilbert, with all due respect, I never once mentioned economic status in any of our correspondence. If connecting this development directly to the street in which their addresses share will separate individuals based on their economic status, as you have suggested, what is the proposal for the current residents in the town of Apex? For example, how do you propose that a person living in a $250,000 neighborhood is able to live in one with the value of $500,000, and the people living in a $500,000 value are able to live into a $1 million value, and so forth? Apex has a wide range of home values, so I would like a plan that is in place to make the entire town of Apex equitable for current residents. The other solution perhaps would be to connect this to our ETJ. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councilmen, members, for your time. Thank you for listening with an open heart and an open mind, and thank you for hearing our concerns and your willingness to come up with viable solutions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, next on the list is Beth Bordeaux. If you would, please remain orderly, no hand claps for anyone. Thank you.
Good evening.
Let me clear some things up. So we were just talking here. So if you want to support your speaker, you can do the American Sign Language of this, right? Or you can raise the roof. All right, sorry to interrupt.
No problem. I'm Beth Bordeaux. I live at 1044 Branch Line Lane in Apex.
I'm also the Executive Director of Western Wake Crisis Ministry and the co-chair of the Western Regional Affordable Housing Action Group with the Community Advocacy Committee of the Western Regional Human Services Center. Boy, that's a title, right? I do have a board member present here tonight, and also I have some representation from the Affordable Housing Action Group. One of our key values at Western Wake Crisis Ministry is community. Another is relationship, and another is equity. When I pull these three together, it means that we're committed to listening and respecting the concerns of all of our community. However, it also means that we will pay particular attention to those who often go unheard. We will go out of our way to be inclusive and engaging in situations where all things are not equal. Listening is not easy work, and I commend you as leaders of our town for genuinely engaging in this practice. Every day at Western Wake Crisis Ministry, we see individuals and families who are on the verge of losing their housing. 13 homes are lost in Wake County due to eviction each day. In 2019, we helped close to 900 households and 2,700 individuals, and 73% of those were from Apex. We know we're not reaching everyone who needs the support. I'm going to throw a few more stats at you. According to Wake County Department of Housing Affordability and Community Revitalization, we're losing our existing affordable housing stock faster than we can produce housing stock and preserve what we have. Approximately 1,050 units are being lost annually. In all of Wake County, we have a deficit of 60,775 affordable housing units. And in Western Wake County, which is Apex, Cary, Morrisville area, we have a deficit of 5,905 units. Households with incomes of $39,000 or below struggle to find affordable housing, and most of these households are spending more than 50% of their income on their housing cost. As you saw earlier in the earlier presentation, the definitions of affordable housing, so I won't go through that. But anyone who is paying more than 30% of their income for housing is considered housing cost burdened. And in Apex, 79% of our lower income families and household renters are housing cost burdened. 79%. 77% of low income homeowners are housing cost burdened. I've given you all these stats in my talk so you can reference it back. If you need more information, I've got it. In Western Wake County, the median gross rent is higher than anywhere else in the area, higher than Holly Springs, higher than anywhere else in Wake County, Chapel Hill, and all around. Also, our vacancy rates are lower for rental properties. Since 2014, the number of students who are experiencing homelessness in Wake County has increased by 50%, but in Western Wake County, it's over 100% of the increase of students experiencing homelessness. I hear a lot about smart growth in Apex. We can't stop the growth, but we can grow smarter. I want to encourage you to think about how we can grow stronger as well. Stronger means that we will have what is needed for all those who work in Apex and who are connected to Apex through their families, their churches, their support systems, are able to call Apex home if they choose. I urge you to approve the zoning request for Habitat for Humanity, provide 10 more homes that are affordable, and make our community stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bordeaux. I would like to call up Phil Welch. Speak, please. Phil Welch.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Phil Welch. I live at 1471 Big Leaf Loop in the Dogwood Ridge subdivision of Apex. I'm here to speak in support of this proposed rezoning on Casina Lane, behind the West Haven Townhomes on Tingen Road, not far from the Apex Elementary School. I also support listening to different points of view and understanding the reasons why neighbors might be opposed. Some reasons may need to be addressed with changes to the proposed development. Other reasons may be due to misunderstandings or misperceptions and also need to be addressed. I hope we can agree that everyone should be free to choose a healthy, comfortable home they can afford in a safe neighborhood close to good schools, employment, and shopping. I'm guessing that all of us know families which struggle to find and keep a roof over their heads while still having enough left over to pay for other basic needs such as health care, food, transportation, child care, and education. For example, you may know someone with a married son or daughter who works full-time along with their spouse and just started a family, but needs to double up with their parents until they save enough for a starter home. Then again, you may know of grandparents who are still working but who just took on the responsibility for raising 2 grandkids and need a larger place with another bedroom. Maybe it's a cousin who was raised in Apex, has a modest income from a job or 2, and would love to live here with their family, but can't find anything in their price range. I've been a Habitat volunteer for over 10 years. I've helped to construct more than 10 new homes, including one here in Apex at the end of Boxwood Lane, one in Southeast Raleigh, and a couple of Saturdays ago, I volunteered at Habitat's new Johnson Place subdivision in Garner. I volunteer with Habitat because it's the organization with the best reputation for building homes for families whose parents typically work in service jobs and can only afford reasonably priced homes. I enjoy working with these future homeowners as they put in about 250 hours of sweat equity to help build their American dreams. In my time living in Apex, I've come to realize that service workers such as retail clerks, child care workers, wait staff, nurses, construction workers, school bus drivers, security guards, and many others have a hard time finding safe, decent homes here which they can afford. If and when Habitat buys this rezoned property, I know that their volunteers, supervised by professional staff, would build the kind of excellent quality, affordable homes that working class families need to provide healthy environments for their families. I urge you to approve rezoning this land so that the new single-family homes can be developed here to meet the needs of our local working families. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilk. I would now like to call up Carl Ziller, please. Carl Ziller.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I didn't plan on coming here for this tonight. Didn't know about it. I live at 303 Interior Court in Perry Farms 3 subdivision. I guess my issue, I've actually built homes with Habitat before. I've participated in Chatham County and Orange County. I do it anytime I can. I think everything that's been discussed here has been great. I think affordable housing is something that's needed. I think my issue with the whole thing, being a resident in that development and not getting notice, was that I'm not within the 300-foot buffer. Perry Farms 3 doesn't have the advantage of having a homeowners association. This was done before, I moved into the neighborhood. There wasn't one, there isn't one, so most of the residents didn't find out about this until maybe, last week. I was approached this weekend. My issue isn't with Habitat, it's with what is typically done in a homeowners association is, the homeowners association would be here to represent us and insist on a consistent, uniform building of the neighborhood, or a staged, in master plan communities, they're set up where you have larger homes, smaller homes, and so on. Unfortunately, what seems to have happened here is there's a lot of homes. I know Ingrid touched on a few things as far as the size of the home, the number of units per acre, the garage issue, the hardy plank, the setbacks. None of these that I saw when I read through a couple of things in his application addressed the differences between what's currently in the community and what they're proposing. Very, higher density houses, no garages, and it's a step change between the houses on Casino Lane and where these houses are going to be built. And to be able to connecting in to Casino makes that, it's part of our neighborhood. So in a lot of ways, I look at it like it should be a flow into it, or there should be buffers, and there isn't any of that. What he's proposing here is a fence in lieu of a buffer, and that fence is to be removed at some point, and that road will become part of, or the houses will be part of our development. Not having that step change is what's concerning. If the houses conformed with the existing structures on Casino Lane, I don't think any of the residents in the neighborhood would have a problem with it. The issue is they're small homes, the setbacks are closer to the street. An example of that is 1000 Shackleton Way. That house was put in there. There's a house right next to it on Shackleton that has a setback that's pushed it ahead like 10 feet. If you go by there and you look at it on iMaps, I think you can even, you can even see it. It's right at the corner of Shackleton and Casena. It sits back, the house sits about 20 feet in front of it. It looks bad. The homeowner planted a tree in there to try and compensate for it, but that's the kind of issues that the homeowners association would normally address and wouldn't let happen. That house got built. I see the same thing happening here. The issue with Tingen Road, those, the addresses for these are Tingen Road. I think the intention was to connect to Tingen, and for whatever reason, they couldn't get the property, and now they're going to connect into Casena. If they're in Tingen Road, I don't think anybody in the neighborhood would have had any issue. If the homes are built like the existing homes, construction, setbacks, garages, so it's consistent, nobody would have, I don't think anybody would complain about it. I would like to see it as an alternative. If they don't connect through, they could put the buffer in there and stub Casena right where it is, and either connect in through that right of way out to Tingen Road, or wait till that homeowner wants to sell and address it that way. That's about all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to call up Michelle Harrison, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. My name is Michelle Harrison. I'm at 1305 Gold Spot Court, Apex, North Carolina, a longtime resident, and also a HUD housing counselor with White Oak Foundation, addressing Apex. But full disclosure, we have been annexed by Cary. But I hear the discussion here tonight. I did not plan to speak, but I do approve this zoning. Every day as a housing counselor at White Oak Foundation, I get calls. We've had calls from senior citizens who are living in their car, or they're basically homeless, sleeping on their children's sofas. So they sofa surf until that child gets tired of them because they cannot afford any place to rent. This could be your mom. This could be my mom. We hear this all the time. We have crisis assistance when we have funds to help people with their rent. And we service Apex, Cary, and Morrisville. And every day, we have people walking in. It's supposed to be appointment only, but they cannot afford their rent. They need an affordable place to live. I've been a housing counselor with White Oak since 2011, and the situation just gets worse every year. There is no affordable housing in Apex, and we have to get over this not in my backyard mentality where we don't, I know you do not oppose people living in affordable homes, but we have to allow these people to live somewhere in a safe environment. They have children. They deserve the right to live in a safe, comfortable place, just like we do. Everyone can't afford what some of us have. If one of our spouses were to pass away, what could you afford? Just think about it. If you go from a 2-income household to a 1-income household, what would happen to you? Could you afford the lifestyle that you have now? That's just some things to think about, and that is why I support this. We offer first-time homebuyer classes. Ever since I've been in Apex doing this, I've had no Apex resident take that class because there's been nowhere for them to live. I have a client now who's being displaced by 540. She is looking at Lee County because she cannot afford to live in Wake County any longer. That's sad. She's a school bus driver, but she cannot afford to live here. So we have to think about what is going to be the future of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. All right, I would now like to call up Mary Johnson, please.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I was concerned about this.
Your name and address, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm Mary Johnson. I live on Tingen Road. My concern tonight was this development, a street being built beside my house, but somehow there was a misunderstanding. So I just wanted to come up and say, I just really think that it's not a whole lot of room back there, which Casino Lane sits behind my house. And I think if if a development comes up back there, where would our animals go? I sit on my porch and watch a lot of the habitat runs, in my backyard, back near Casino Lane, and they just won't have anywhere to go. And then I don't know how close this will be to my yard, but I'm assuming that it's going to be very close, and I have grandchildren. I don't know if there's going to be how close the streets are going to be to my house, or I worry about things like that. So I just want to come up and give you my concerns. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was the last person on our list here, so I will go ahead and close public hearing this time and refer the matter to council for discussion and possible motion.
I have a few more questions, specifically for Mr. Roach. So there were a few comments that I would like for you to address. One of them is that the addresses in this area will have a Tingen Road address, other than not on Tingen Road.
All three properties currently have a Tingen Road address. It's 0 Tingen Road, or I think the actual address on the thing was like 1105. 1105 Tingen Road is actually the address that Wake County GIS has for the three projects. That's the only reason that Tingen Road was even associated with it. So Stubb Street would provide all access to it.
Okay. And is there currently a right-of-way here to Tingen Road?
There is not.
And there was also mention of the fence will at some point be taken down?
It is a zoning commitment that was in perpetuity. If the fence gets taken down, there'll be a zoning compliance officer that will be knocking on their door to tell them to put it back up. So the fence cannot come down.
Okay. That's the questions I have for you.
I think there is an access easement for the home currently, like a driveway or something, right?
Correct. There's a perpetual easement there that if they've been using it for a certain number of years, the attorneys in the room know more about that than I do, but yes. For example, Ms. Johnson has access rights out to Tingen Road because that's where her driveway goes, whether it's on her property or not. But we don't.
Right, that easement can be used to build a road.
No, it can't be used to build a public right-of-way to do new lots and subdivide off of, correct.
Did you approach those homeowners about selling as well to build a larger developer? Because I heard it wasn't for sale.
The story is that the current Mr. Koalas has been buying property in this area or trying to buy property in this area for 25 years. He was one of the original developers of Perry Hills, Perry Farms 25 years ago. And he, so there's no purchase of land. Ms. Johnson, I don't know if I didn't know Ms. Johnson was here tonight. I haven't approached her. I would assume that Mr. Koalas has spoken to her or the Epps family that's in the area to purchase, and they're not willing to sell at this point. Along those same lines, remember, this is a stub street. Stub streets, when we show up with a piece of property, wherever it is in the town, if there is a stub street, it is a requirement of the ordinance that we have to extend those into the property. So that is our required access to this site, even though it has a Tingen Road address. It could have been subdivided 50 years ago by family. I don't know why it has a Tingen address, but that is a requirement. That's why our access is coming down to Casena.
All 10 homes will have Casena Lane addresses.
That is correct.
Are there plans for a monument or some other distinguishing feature as you go into this subdivision?
We don't have a plan for it now, no, sir. With 9, 10 lots, once again, once you put a monument up, that becomes an HOA responsibility. Now you have additional dues to maintain a fence or additional landscaping or additional signage, whatever's put in.
So just to clarify, Mr. Rhodes, these homes will not have a Tingen Road address?
That is correct. They will all be at, and I'm going to step in for staff and say that Will Brown will likely assign these a Tingen Road address. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, a Casena Lane. Let me go on the record. Casena Lane address. I apologize. Yes. I apologize.
Any other questions for Mr. Roach?
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Question for the CEO.
Oh, Mr. Ahern?
Hi, I just had a couple of questions I wanted to bring up related to, we talked about stormwater, about buffers, we talked about preservation of trees and not, and a lot of these things pointed to the affordability, that impacts affordability. So I wanted to know, with a small development like this, to attack these issues, what's been Habitat's experience or lessons learned about partnering to help make sure that this does stay affordable in perpetuity for folks?
Well, in terms of it being in perpetuity, we can't guarantee that. With our model, we don't have a deed restriction to keep it affordable in perpetuity. If that is something you would want to make, that is something that you would have to do. We don't do that. We don't make our homes affordable in perpetuity. Part of our model is to build wealth, and if you keep it affordable forever, then it's difficult for our homeowners to build that wealth, because we like to see them be able to move on to bigger homes, other areas. We don't want to necessarily keep it affordable in perpetuity. In terms of working with the surrounding area, we very much try to do that. We want it to blend into the community as much as possible, but still keep it affordable. So we'll go to great lengths to try to do all those things, as long as it still keeps it at a construction cost and a land development cost that still keeps the house affordable.
So it sounds like you're saying that these houses do increase in value just like everyone else's house.
Oh, absolutely. And the lady that spoke earlier said that I said these homes would be in the 170 to 190,000 range. Well, that's not what I said. What I said was that the homes in other areas of the community that aren't appreciating in value like Apex is are selling for $170,000 and $190,000. So what they would appraise for here in Apex, I'm not a appraiser, so I don't want a professional appraiser, so I don't want to get in trouble, but I would just speculate that I would assume they would be even higher than that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
While you're up, so, but when the homeowners help build the home and then they move in, there's something about a 20-year time when they can't resell it, or how's that work again? I heard 20 years in part of the...
Well, they take out a 30-year mortgage, and they essentially can sell the home whenever after that point. We don't have any restrictions on it staying with them for any certain period of time. Do I have that right? Right, but we have the right of first refusal. Should they go to sell it, then we could buy that back if we wish to keep it affordable.
Okay, gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we are looking at things like shared appreciation riders and mortgage appreciation riders where we can make it more difficult to sell shortly after it being purchased, so that there isn't a flipping of the home right away to take advantage of homes appreciated quickly.
Can you address, you presented at the planning board meeting, the qualification process, how does one qualify to be a part
Sure.
of it?
So I believe last month, was it 300 or 600 families we had apply? Was it either 300 or 600? Anyway, the approval rate is only about 2% of all applications that we take. And it's a very stringent process for these homeowners to get qualified. We look at their income for the past 2 years. We look at credit reports. We look at criminal history. We look at, well, they have to put in the sweat equity hours. So it's a real challenge for these people to make it all the way through our program. And when they do, it is a real celebration when we go to the dedications and give them these homes, because they have earned it in so many ways other than just the sweat equity, but in terms of all their other aspects of life that they put into making this happen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just one other quick question. I'm just trying to understand too about the longevity of the affordability
Sure.
of these proposed homes. So it would be about a 30-year period?
Well, that's the mortgage that they take out, yeah. But right now, we don't have restrictions on when they can sell that, because again, part of the Habitat model is to allow them to generate wealth and to then move on to wherever they would like to move on to. So we don't put restrictions in terms of keeping it affordable in perpetuity. But that is something that governments have done in various municipalities, is to make it affordable in perpetuity. The city of Raleigh has done that, and if that's something that this council wants to consider in any affordable housing opportunities, that's something you should consider. There are pros and cons to keeping it affordable in perpetuity.
What are those pros and cons?
Well, the pros are it keeps it affordable. The cons is that it may come a time when it would be better to go ahead and have that property be sold at market rates. And that would be the biggest reason, is to go and let it be sold and not try to keep it affordable when it's maybe not appropriate to keep it affordable in a certain area any longer.
I'm just thinking about how do we continue to address affordability, though, housing affordability in our area?
Well, there are many opportunities for that, and that's where I understand you're going to be coming up with some affordable housing policies and programs, and that's where I would love the opportunity to come back and to be a part of whatever groups that you're putting together to discuss ways to do that besides just putting in deed restrictions and things like that.
I kind of agree with that. Like, it seems to me what you're discussing about ensuring the affordability sounds attractive to me. I'm just not sure we're going to be able to write that deed restriction on the fly right now. Like, it sounds like that could be something we could look at as we move into developing an affordable housing policy for Apex, something to consider.
I think that's right. It has to be a balanced approach, because people want to build equity to be able to purchase another home, you know. So that's the thing about that person. They're building wealth for themselves, but then they're not able to build as much if they have to keep it. So how do we, I think that's trying to balance that for them and for new people coming in. So
Right, for example,
the whole community.
I'm sorry, yeah. For example, in this piece of property here, what if all the other houses around it were skyrocketing in appreciation, but you kept this little piece of parcel affordable in perpetuity and limited how much that could appreciate? That might not be the best situation for that piece of property, if it's an island in itself.
And my understanding is the best indicator of wealth is home ownership.
Yep.
And being able to let it appreciate and sell that property brings people up.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're aiming for, is to help with that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion there?
I have some other comments I want to make, Mayor. Two things really, and one of the speakers hit on this. It's kind of been a pet peeve of mine, is our notification process that we have in Apex. The 300-foot restriction, or not restriction, 300-foot
No.
circle we put around the notice area feels to me very insufficient in the year 2020. You know, we could do social media posts, we could send out emails, we could, you know, I don't know, run Facebook ads or something. Like, there's a lot more that we could be doing so we don't end up in a situation where neighbors are surprised by something. Kind of just stick some stakes in the ground and call it good. So, I mean, that's something I'll be pursuing another time, but I actually agree with that homeowner. The other issue, my major issue coming into tonight was about the water runoff. That seemed to be a legitimate concern, and those have been addressed by the applicant. I believe now that the water runoff is not going to increase to the one property in particular that kind of abuts the stream that I was worried about. I feel a little concerned about this buffer issue for that one other homeowner. I feel for him. I kind of feel like, I don't know, like I asked the question and I heard about it. It makes me a little uncomfortable. I think if it's something I'm weighing, like, this is doing a lot of benefit for us, and I think if those benefits weren't there for affordable homes, I'd be a little more vocal about that, and the benefit it's doing for our town. But that neighbor, I think, is getting kind of the short end of the stick here.
Okay.
So I can go next here, related to your comment about noticing. So I think that the state allows it's 100 and we do 300. And I did bring that up during, and there wasn't support for that at the time. And the developer community was speaking about some of the challenges it would pose for them to have a space for, you know, a lot of people and things like that. So I think we could talk about that and then engage the developer community, citizens about how, or residents, about how we can do that. But I definitely think communications is, and we can always overdo that, you know, versus try to overdo it versus noticing things and writing and that kind of thing. Related to the project, though, you know, I am a little concerned around the people who are the most directly impacted there, to see if we can, you know, around, if this passes tonight, around other things related to the next time we get to see this project. You know, in my state where I work on healthcare, and I know that housing is one of the main determinants of our social determinants of health. And there are many people here who we don't realize are, you know, have food scarcity and are home insecure. And there are people who are working every day, and many people who have children. And so I've been here a long time, and I've seen people not ask people their address when they are in need, schools and charities and faith leaders and just people rally around people when they are dealing with something. And it's all people. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic status is or where you work or how you do it. And so because I know that, and this is community, I feel like people feel like they are their brother and sister's keeper. I think this is one of the things we should do, and we should try to do it more often. The more you are in contact with people who have different issues or needs, or could be someone who has a low income and they have maybe living with a disability. The more you talk to people who have a little bit of a difference than you, the richer your life is, and the stronger and better our community is. So I'm excited. This is our 100, you know, our first time we're doing this. I hope that we will create a policy that we can make it easier for people to bring projects. And so that's where I am, and I think doing this it increases the life quality of all of us, and I would like to continue to just work on some of the issues that do affect the people who are most directly impacted by things like the buffers, not anything else that was brought up. So I will support the project for those reasons.
So yeah, my thoughts on this are that, you know, I think that most people's home is their biggest investment that they make in their entire life, and so it makes a lot of sense to try to protect it and try to increase its value. And I think this neighborhood will be a step change inevitably. The narrow lots, make it that way. And the neighborhood's been around 20 years, and this is, it'll be a lot different because it'll be a lot newer as well. And it'll be a big change. But our job, I feel like my job is to look out for the community, and I think affordable housing is the big pro that kind of overrides the cons of the project. No offense to Carrie and Carrie Magazine, but there was a Carrie development that was affordable housing a couple years ago when they shrunk it quite a bit, and I was like, I don't want that to happen in Apex, and I'll get the chance to not do that, and I hope that we can move forward and have this be a part of the community that's a strong and a vibrant part of the community.
And I would just like to say that I think we all want good things for Apex. I think we all want quality of life for Apex. I think we all want Apex to be a welcoming place for everyone, and that includes people with diverse incomes. I was speaking with our town manager this morning, and the median house price in Apex now is about $375,000. The median rent in Apex right now is about $1,700 a month. So we are way short on, providing housing affordability for, our firefighters, our first responders, our teachers, our child care providers. And I think we all agree that we want to be a place where people with varying incomes can live and work. And so for that reason, I am going to support this project. And I would just ask that if this is approved, that our Habitat folks work to address the concerns that have been raised as much as possible to make this a win-win for everyone in our community.
I will have to say that, seeing some of the things that are concerning about the differences in, Habitat homes versus the existing homes, that's what is going to make these houses affordable for the people who want to be there. Not having the garage and having, vinyl siding versus the hardy plank and things like that. Those small changes make a big difference to allow people that first step of home ownership. And if that's going to help members of our community, then I'm going to support this project.
Motion to approve.
I heard a motion.
All right, motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion second. Discussion further. All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, it passes unanimously. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and presenting. Thank you. We'll now move on to public hearing number 4. Number 19 CZ 24, presented by Lawrence Stoudemire. Just give us a second. If you would please, excuse me, you could just make your way out and socialize outside, please, so we can continue in the meeting. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is 2045 Land Use Map Amendment and Rezoning Case 19 CZ 24, Upchurch Williams House, located at 7213 Roberts Road. The property is located in this general area in the northern part of Apex. The property to be rezoned is 5.5 acres and located on the east side of NC 540 Highway on the west side of Roberts Road, adjacent to Greenmore and the Pines at Wake Crossing. There is an existing structure on the site that is designated as an Apex Historic Landmark, which the Town Council approved in April 2018. The property is currently zoned rural residential. The adjacent zonings are to the north and east, Wake County R40W, to the south, rural residential, and to the west, Plan Unit Development Conditional Zoning. The applicant is proposing to rezone this property to office and institutional conditional zoning. The 2045 land use map identifies the proposed site as medium, high-density residential. Office and institutional is not a permitted zoning district within this land use map designation. Therefore, the 2045 land use map amendment is to propose for office employment. The proposed zoning district is consistent with the proposed classification. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on October 22nd, 2019, and a copy of the neighborhood report is in your packet. A full list of the proposed uses are included on page 2 of the staff report. Uses such as assembly hall nonprofit, assembly hall for-profit, office, business, or professional, medical or dental office or clinic. The applicant has provided 3 conditions that I would like to point out for you, and that can be found on page 2 of the staff report. The first one is, the sidewalk and parking for this historic landmark property shall be constructed with materials such as exposed aggregate concrete or similar material. The second one is, all renovations on historic buildings requiring site plan approval shall follow the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for rehabilitation of historic structures and applicable regulations in the UDO Section 6.3 Small Town Character Overlay District. If a historic building is designated as a Wake County landmark, then a certificate of appropriateness from Wake County Historic Preservation Commission shall be required. The third one, new development, construction, or renovations to non-historic buildings shall comply with applicable sections of the UDO and the following conditions. Ethos or synthetic stucco shall not be used in the first 4 feet above grade and shall be limited to only 25% of each building facade. Predominant exterior building materials shall be high-quality materials, including brick, wood stacked stone, other native stone, and tinted or textured concrete masonry units. And the building exterior shall have more than one material color, typically we see for non-residential. Approval of the proposed land use map amendment and rezoning are reasonable and in the public interest because it will provide for a variety of options for the use of the large historic home on the subject property. A historic preservation easement has been recorded on the property, which will ensure preservation of the house in a manner to maintain the landmark status. As the existing structure is residential in nature, the property will remain consistent with the appearance of the area. The proposed rezoning will provide flexibility to accommodate the growth and the development in this area while being consistent with the 2045 land use map as proposed. Planning Board heard this item at their January 13th meeting and unanimously recommended approval. Planning staff can recommend approval of the 2045 land use map amendment and rezoning with conditions as offered by the applicant. I'll be happy to answer questions as well as our applicant in the audience. Thank you.
Any questions for Lauren?
Does that easement mean that the house in the future cannot be moved?
So that will actually, I'll let Gary Roth with Capital Area Preservation answer that,
Okay.
as that is their easement.
And will this development be required to build the sidewalks along Roberts, along the frontage?
Yes, that will be typically at master subdivision plan, and obviously, as it is a landmark site, we'll be working with Capital Area Preservation as well as Wake County Preservation to make sure that we are in compliance with theirs as well.
But the sidewalk, the aggregate concrete discussion, that's internal to the site, not along the road, right?
Correct, correct.
Any other questions for Lauren? We're now here from the applicant.
Hello, my name's Kara Powell. I am happy to see you again, Mayor Gilbert. Great to see you again, Councilwoman Stallings. Thank you so much for meeting with me this week. And so excited to be standing in front of you guys, and I really appreciate the opportunity for your support and to be heard. Just want to give you a little bit of background. I've owned a business in the Triangle. I'm a professional photographer. I've owned a business in the Triangle for the last 16 years. And almost a year ago, a year Sunday, was had the opportunity to start looking for a possible venue, a wedding venue. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina originally, grew up in historic homes, actually live in a historic home now in Raleigh, and have lived and both had offices in historic buildings in the area since I've moved here. So pretty much my entire life. So for me, in January of 2019, I started looking for a spot for a wedding venue to be able to utilize my expertise in the industry. It was really important to find an establishment that was a historic home to possibly renovate. It's always been a passion of mine to be able to do that and be able to share with the community and bring a home back to its original glory. In January, I came across the Upchurch Williams house, fell in love with it. It's, obviously a big undertaking, so it's something that I put a lot of time and effort and research into, before I even contacted Capital Area Preservation. So basically, I think it was July of last year, went out and physically saw the property and just fell in love with it. And these guys were so wonderful, and I just knew it was a place that I needed to restore and bring it back to its original glory. So made an offer on it in August, and then I've gone through the process. So if we get the support today from town council, then we'll actually close on Friday. My birthday's on Sunday, so that would be a really amazing birthday gift. But I'm just, this whole process has been so amazing. I mean, Mayor, you being at the meeting last week, it just spoke volumes to me. I was really touched by that. And just working with CAP and the neighborhood meeting that we had in October, I've just felt so much warmth from everyone. Like, I was expecting possible pitchforks, and people have been so amazing. Like, I love Apex. But then also, I was telling the planning department today, I mean, I wish I could do something for them. I'm like, please let me build these homes on Casino Lane for you. Like, I really love this area, and the planning department has been absolutely amazing. Just really unbiased in their approach, which I appreciate so much. Being a wedding photographer, shooting 70 weddings a year, you have to be politically correct, so I get it. But this has just, been a really great experience. So I know I have Gary Roth up here with me just because he's the expert on this, and he's probably going to be able to answer some of your questions better than I am. But basically, as far as I kind of went into this, I approached them. They love the idea. Gary will tell you a little bit more, but there was some. The house has been on the market. It was moved in 2015, and it's been on the market since then. So there really hasn't been a suitable person, that's wanted to take it on as an undertaking, and has had the passion that I've had. So I think that's where the partnership with me and them has worked really well, which if the deal goes through, then we'll basically be working side by side through this process. But for me, when I approached the planning department, I asked them, I said, tell me, like, what would be your drawbacks? Because for me, mitigating potential issues was very important. So that's why, working side by side with not only CAP, but the planning department, and then addressing the neighbors' concerns was very important to me, because I plan on passing this on to my 3 little girls. Like, I want to teach them this business and keep it a family affair. Because I'm very, very diligent. I try to be very friendly and I give back to my community and whatnot. And so, it was very important to me to have to create this relationship, like, from the very beginning. And I know there's been other issues with another venue in town, so I wanted to mitigate those potential issues up front. So as far as the 5.5 acres, having that entire piece of land was very important to me, because I wanted to be able to keep the majority of that land intact. So basically, as it stands now, and of course, we don't have any site plans at this point. We haven't, created the surveys and whatnot, but I have prophylactically met with Peter Knausen. He knows the property very well, and so we're going to be able to keep the majority of the land intact. And then also, like, the facade of the house, like what people can see from the street, I want, it to look beautiful from the street. And so basically my plan is to have well-marked signage so that the parking wouldn't be immediately, it's not going to necessarily look like something that's, a commercial building. The property, the parking lot would be something where there would be a buffer with trees and whatnot. And so everything that's going to kind of take place, you're going to see the beauty of the home, but, weddings or whatever event, it might be small events, would be, behind the property. With it being butted up next to 540, you have the natural buffer there of what's the noise that's kind of already existing. But then also, like, keeping in mind that's very important, to have, operating hours. I don't want to be there past 11 o'clock, so that was something that was really important as well. I know that's a lot of information. I know you probably have a lot of questions, and hopefully between Gary and I, we can answer them.
Let me just, I don't know if I can add anything to that. I'm Gary Roth, Capital Area Preservation. When we met last month, we were talking about the loss of one landmark. We were adding another landmark, and tonight we're really talking about the future of another landmark. And that's what we've been working on since we first encountered this house in June of 2014. We encountered it because we got a tip that the house was about to be burned down in a fire exercise. And with the help of town staff and with the help of Apex Fire Department, who said, whoa, we didn't know this was historic, everybody pitched in. And we were able to work with the property owner and talk to him about saving the house. And in the end, he generously gave us the house and he gave us the land on which it's sited now. So for those of you who may not know, this house was moved across 540. I know Drew knows this because he was out there that day. We think this photo should have won the Pulitzer Prize, actually. But this was fantastic, and there's a whole story of the taking of this photo. But that was a day in December of 2015. And from then, we started construction work. And I got to tell you, frankly, we have put every spare cent that Capital Area Preservation is a small nonprofit, and we have put every spare cent that we have into saving of this home. We thought it was that important. It is, you must come and see it. And maybe you should see it after Kara's finished, because it's going to be even better then. But it is a spectacular home. It has an important place in Apex history, and we just couldn't see it go away. And we do appreciate very much, and you're going to talk about this later, that we had support from the town of Apex in doing this, and we appreciate that very much. Without that support, this also would not have happened. So this is very important. I won't put you through this, but we went through a 2-year sales process, more than 2-year sales process, and no one like this person came in our radar. It was amazing. No one with the experience, no one with the desire, no one with the respect for this house that will feature this as the centerpiece and not an add-on, a burden to them. We had people who wanted to build 10,000 square foot structures on the rest of the property and just kind of benignly neglect the house. We had people who who said, hey, first question, can we tear down the house? Well, we're not in this for tearing down the house. We're in this for saving the house. You guys have recognized that because you've designated it a Wake County landmark. So all those things come together. I have to tell you this too, in all those encounters with all of those folks who we spoke with in this process, no one wanted to purchase this as a residential structure. We thought that would what would happen. We thought, 5.5 acres in Apex? I mean, where is this going to happen? It didn't happen. Everyone had commercial notions, and some of those commercial notions were, they were not supportive and productive for the future of that house. And Kara came along. she talks our language. She just fell in love with this place, and we saw, well, this is really the right person for the job. You've got to make this structure, this has got to be the central feature, and that's what she's all about. We couldn't be happier with her. We totally support this rezoning to O&I. And just one final word, and Kara kind of touched on this, this is not a classic sale where we shake hands, we pass a check, we leave and say good luck, and out of town. This is a partnership. This building will be a Wake County, it is a Wake County landmark, an Apex landmark. It will be an easement property of capital area preservation. Before the plans come to you guys, before they go to your town staff, we will be reviewing them to ensure that what she's proposing is going to guarantee that this home will be preserved in perpetuity. So that's something different, I think, than what we normally accustomed to. We're going to be part of this process, but we couldn't be more delighted with her as our potential buyer, and we hope, really sincerely hope, that you guys will vote this zoning change tonight. And any questions, we both would be happy to answer them. I'll switch places.
And when you say guarantee perpetuity, that means this house on this spot,
This
right?
house on this spot. This is the historic, this is not the historic site of the home. This home was across 540, but it is historic property of this home. This was all once owned by Golden Upchurch, all of this land over the 540 area, and so it has been relocated on its historic, on the historic property of the builder. So it will stay there.
Any questions?
Are you planning, I think there's some issues discussed about parking in the neighborhood meeting, and is the plan to have a policy in place where parties over a certain amount of people just have to hire a shuttle service?
Oh, yeah, no, of course. No, and I think I was so delighted to actually have those questions come up in that meeting, because there was stuff that I just didn't think of. But no, yes, of course. I mean, honestly, from what I've seen over the years, I mean, I've been to so many weddings just because I've been doing this for so long. And typically in situations, there's a shuttle situation, so parking's not really an issue anyway. But I think what we had talked about, as a product of that neighborhood meeting, was potentially talking about having a sign, because I think the specific question you're referring to was there's a road across the street that's actually part of their driveway. So I think we were talking about actually putting up a sign, no parking, that would help with that. And also, I mean, there's going to be a caretaker with the venue the entire time. So it's not like we hand over the keys and, we say, have fun, I mean, we're, the responsible party. So if an issue like that does arise, we'll be able to address it immediately.
Okay. Yeah, I think if we can avoid the parking in that, like I said, with some kind of shuttle service over a certain amount, that's some kind of policy that you can develop.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Not part of zoning, but at least in general,
Yeah.
we won't get any calls about angry people
Yeah.
as a result, so that'd be great.
Thank you.
And did I read about 75 parking?
Yes. So what we had, Mr. Knosson and I had talked about was a parking lot for 75.
I'll say this material that Lauren referred to is to simulate gravel, to keep that kind of the rural feel about the home, but it's a handicap accessible material and so forth. So, but that's everything about this is to try to maintain that residential quality, even though it's going to be used as a office and institutional purposes.
All right. Any further questions?
And there will be accessibility for
Yes,
people with
ma'am.
mobility
Yes,
issues.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead and open up public hearing at this time, and I'd like to call the first speaker, Jeremy Bradham.
I don't need to say, I just put my name on there. I don't need to say anything. Gary, our president and CEO, has already covered it.
Okay, all right, thank you. How about Gary Roth? You're good.
Done.
I How about Kara? Okay, we got Kara and then Jeff Hastings.
I will speak a little bit about that. Mayor, Council, Jeff Hastings, 3609 Friendship Road, Apex. Here on behalf of two entities, really, Apex Historical Society, which I'm the president of, and also the Wake County Historical Commission, which I'm the vice chair of. I was delighted when we found out about the opportunity to be able to save this house, and I was there that day that we moved it across 540, and it was an incredible site. I can tell you that 10 years ago, we were looking at the Tunstall House, talking about with the previous councils about what to do with the Tunstall House. And the idea about something like a facility that can handle weddings or small gatherings came up. And the strong opinion of the council at that time was that it's a really good idea for private entities to be in that business and for the town not to be in that business. And at the time, Oaks of Salem was relatively young, fledgling, doing that. So it's really encouraging to me that a house like this is going to be saved. It's going to be taken care of for potentially ever as this type of facility. I'm sure a lot of you have been to the Matthews House in Cary, and I would liken it sort of to that. It's sort of an area that this council could have a future retreat at. It's an area that a Chamber of Commerce can have a retreat at. You could have weddings, and I think that the ability to have something like that in Apex with the visibility on 540 that I'm sure is going to be there would just be welcome to everybody. And so I know that you got to stumble and crawl before you walk type thing, but I've got the utmost faith in capillary preservation and care that this project would come to fruition that would make all of us proud. So thank you very much.
Mr. Hastings. All right, this time I'll close public hearing and refer the matter to council for discussion and possible motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion.
I think this is going to kill it, by the way, this venue. I think there's a strong need for it in this area. And,
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I just want to say I met with Kara, and from the moment I met her to the end, her energy was amazing. Her enthusiasm is contagious. She is so dedicated to this project, and I think she's going to it's going to be extraordinary. And I think it's going to be a real asset to our community.
Any other discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That passes unanimously. All right. Is everybody good?
Happy birthday.
That's right.
So keep going, unless you need to stop
Y'all good?
for a second.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. That's good.
Okay.
All right. We'll move on to new business 1. Diane Kent.
All right. So as you all know, have heard, Apex's jurisdiction has many historic resources that are unmarked at this time. Actually, I'll let you read along with me. But weren't there stories being told? Historical markers typically commemorate historically significant places, people, and events. And one such story is the Friendship Rosenwald School, as was described by Mr. Harris during public forum this evening. A group of interested citizens from Friendship approached the town's planning and administration staff to see what could be done to get a historical marker there. Staff appreciated the citizens' initiative and saw it as an opportunity to tell the story not only of this wonderful historic resource, but others in town as well. And so we patterned the proposed historical marker program after the very successful facade grant program in downtown Apex. We found that offering a matching grant is a good way to make good things happen, particularly with motivated partners like the Friendship Neighbors. We worked with the Friendship Neighbors and with Ansley Wagner, who's the administrator of the North Carolina Highway Historical Marker Program, to be sure we included all the important components of a successful marker program. Ms. Wagner is an Apex resident, and so she's especially pleased that we're proposing this local program. So some key components. The applications will be reviewed by staff for historical authenticity, relative merit, appropriateness of content, aesthetics. The markers would be located on private land with easements or on town property with either easements or encroachment agreements. At the recommendation of Ms. Wagner, we are not going to generally allow historical markers in NCDOT rights-of-way as they are often hit by vehicles at high speeds and they're very expensive to replace. So she really recommended you keep it as far off the road as you can. And the historical marker locations have to be in Apex's corporate limits or ETJ and have to comply with all state and local regulations, including obtaining the required agreements. So the historical marker that we're proposing would be the following style. It would have the apex seal in the center at the top. It would be a black background with white lettering and a white seal. We couldn't find an example of the white seal, but it would be all white lettering. The post would have to be black if post mounted. It could be mounted on a building if there's not right of way. So, for example, if the town's interested in doing one for the Halley Cultural Arts Center, it wouldn't go on a post most likely. And then lettering would be appropriate to the location, and that's for visibility. No smaller than 1.5 inches, no larger than 3 inches. And obviously the larger would be for higher speed roads. So staff does recommend approval of this new program.
Thank you.
Question? So wondered if there was a plan or a plan in place to talk about how to let the public know this is happening. Will there be some like revealing of the markers or,
I'm not in that business, but I will work with Stacy Galloway to make sure that we advertise it so that folks realize, first off, that we have the program, but also second off, when the marker happens at Friendship, that we have an event. I know that they want to do that, and we will definitely help all we can to make that happen.
Thank you.
Will these markers be maintained by the applicant, the person applying for them going forward? Are they privately owned or are they owned by the town? Or what's the maintenance of them?
So generally, they are built to last a very long time. I would say that if they are knocked down, it would be the same process to get a new one placed. They'd have to go through that application to have them replaced. When we've had town signs hit, our historic signs downtown, they are typically totaled. You have to start up from scratch and get all new posts, all new sign faces. So hopefully we will keep them out of harm's way so that they are there in perpetuity. Again, if there needs to be a maintenance program, that needs to be something that would not be part of the grant program. That would be something that, I guess, it would be Public Works maintains signs.
Is there going to be a max per year that are going to be put up?
It would be determined by the amount that you all put into the program during budget season, the same way that the downtown facade grant is done. So if you want one a year, you put that much money in. If you want 10 a year, you put that much money in.
Well, there'll be a time though, staff time spent to kind of research it, right? I mean, it's not just the sign cost; it's going to be personnel cost.
Sure, but I don't know how many we're going to get because they do have to come up with money on their own. So there has to be fundraising efforts or donations on the private side as well, because these typically are not going to be in locations that at businesses. They're typically going to be government facilities or private locations.
You're not thinking
like
houses. A ton of, okay.
I don't think we're going to get very many.
I guess, do we have a backlog of ones that we want to put up on our historic buildings? 4 or 5?
I do in my head. I mean, yeah, I've got a list that I'd like, but we have all of our anything that's that's a Wake County landmark or National Register potentially could have a marker. And then there are also events that may have occurred that I may not even be aware of in the history of Apex that you want to commemorate, which, I mean, that could be something that we look into as well. I know.
Registry of them where people can take tours and go around and.
Oh, yes, we would definitely keep a registry, sure.
Yeah. What's the cost for both? I'm looking.
What's
2,000, right?
2,000. Okay.
It's up to 2,000, so it really depends on how big the signs are and how many letters, and that's why you often see a lot of abbreviations on these things if you've ever tried to read one, because there's a base cost and then there's actually like a cost basically per letter, but we did make a request, and generally you can get a small one for about $2,000, you can get a larger one for about $4,000. So we just kind of split the difference and said up to $2,000 matching, so it would be a $4,000 sign to get the $2,000 amount.
All right.
Is the Apex Historical Society involved at all in the process?
Larry spoke with them.
Yes.
So they were aware, and we provided the information to CAP as well. Yep, and they're here.
If the town is not in the business of acquiring more ETJ property, why would we limit this to the town and to the ETJ property and not open it up to the long-range service urban areas of Apex?
Because I don't believe we can spend money outside the town's jurisdiction.
Yeah. And Ms. Hazen, feel free to pay them a visit and just discuss it, in their office. All right, cool. All right. Any other questions for Diane?
How many do you have in your head?
12, 15.
Well, for sure, with the downtown plan, we'd love to see one at the depot. We'd love to see one at the Halley. And then I think there probably should be a general just for downtown Apex, kind of telling the history of Log Pond, that type of thing. So my head's mostly downtown, but there are probably other locations. Well, Tunstall House, when we redo that, definitely would love a marker there. Yeah, I mean, So yeah, actually, I mean, the Upchurch Williams House has a phenomenal story, and that's part of the thing. It's not just about the historic structure, it's about the story. Like, why was this important?
I think this is great. I worked in downtown Raleigh, and I walk by the same ones, and I just always just look at them. You know, I don't know why, but it's just something. They're beautiful. But I just always pay attention to them. So I don't read them every time, Brett, but I look at them. So, motion to approve. Let's go.
All right, motion second. Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Pass unanimously. All right. Good job. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for all your work on it. All right, new business number 2. Discussion, possible motion to amend section 17.2 of our town code.
Yes, I'll just, if the council pleases council, I'll just present from up here. So Mayor and council, this is an amendment to our ordinance based on firearms and where you can carry firearms. This started with trying to make sure our signs were correct on our buildings, and in doing so, we recognized that we needed to amend our ordinance to make sure we were in compliance with the general statutes, and to make sure also that we have new parks coming online, and by general statute, you have to specifically identify the park and elements, and so we're just trying to update our ordinance to make sure we're in compliance, and then we can post the proper signs. So that's what this is. It's just the amendment, getting our ordinance cleaned up, and I'll answer any questions best I can, obviously. This way we can answer questions as well.
Does this include all of our parks?
Yes.
All of our town buildings?
So we've listed everything that we, to the best ability that we could come up there. We ran through recreation, got everything put on there, tried doing everything we can, but not miss anything. I think we even have Pleasant Park and.
We have added Pleasant Park as well. In the statute, specifically, the state legislature has preempted local governments from most gun regulations except as they otherwise provide. So with the parks, you have to specifically identify the recreational facilities that are included in the prohibition, and the statute expressly defines which facilities we can include. And so that's why it is tailored the way it is with the specificity for each of the individual fields.
It sounds like you have gone as broad and as comprehensive as you can for this, for firearm safety in our community.
Yes, ma'am.
So why aren't playgrounds included?
They are not included within the definition of athletic facilities that the legislature has given us the authority to regulate. So in other words, we do not have authority to regulate those under the statute.
It's a General Assembly question.
Yes.
That's who does.
So we can carry, you can't take a gun into the General Assembly,
Right.
but you can carry a gun into a playground full of kids. Insane.
Ironic.
That's being polite. When was that changed?
Was it last session?
I think it was within last session.
But, not, what, the last long session before this one?
2015, I believe.
Long session.
I'm suddenly struck with the overwhelming feeling that a playground is an athletic field. You guys feeling that way right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I put some cold water on it.
What does our attorney think about that?
I mean, go.
So the legislature has specifically defined recreational facilities, and they include an athletic field, during an organized athletic event, if the field has been scheduled for use with the municipality or county offices responsible for the operation of the park and recreation. A swimming pool, including any appurtenant facilities used for dressing, storage of personal items, and other uses related to the swimming pool, and a facility used for athletic events, including but not limited to a gymnasium. So an athletic field is limited in that it's only, you can only prohibit it during an organized athletic event, which most playgrounds do not have.
What was the last one you said?
A facility used for athletic events, including but not limited to a gymnasium.
It'd be nice if that was an easy solution. Just label them athletic fields.
I thought I had him there for a second.
We try. And I'll just come back to saying, it sounds like you've gone as broad and comprehensive as you can, and that's what I appreciate. That's what we can do.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Any other discussion on that?
Can we petition because playgrounds used to be an allowed use, or not allowed use, listed in the places where you can regulate gun possession, right? Like this is prior to 2015, and I can't believe they took out playgrounds. Like, was that intentional? Was it an oversight? Do you think they actually went in? Maybe they meant to they wanted to regulate athletic fields, and somewhere through the editing process they dropped a playground. Is that possible? No.
Maybe that's something we can ask Moms Demand Action to lobby for at the General Assembly.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll get off the point, but I appreciate that you've put together an ordinance here that goes as far as we can in protecting the town and citizens, and I'm disappointed to learn that we can't go farther in some very common sense ways around some facilities that we own.
Yep.
So.
And that includes all town buildings as well.
It does. The prohibition includes all town buildings.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion second, discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. We'll move to last item, new business number 3, presented by Great Town Manager, Mr. Lee.
Mayor Gilbert, you have an add-on item in front of you. This relates to the Upchurch Williams house that you just rezoned. When that house was being moved, the town entered into a loan agreement with Capital Area Preservation whereby we lent them $75,000 to help them relocate that home, get it prepared for sale. The loan agreement provided for a 2-year period of time with no interest, after which interest was to accrue. Based on the most liberal interpretation of the loan agreement, interest needed to start accruing in October of 2019. So between October and January, estimate about $690 worth of interest has accrued. What this item is a resolution of the council to forego the collecting of the interest, assuming that the property closes as predicted on the 24th. It sounds like the new owner is going to be very interested in getting this closing done. The loan principal amount is due at closing. Mr. Roth is already working that into their closing statement. So this is just forgiving that $690 worth of interest.
Mr. Manager, is the plan to give future loans of this type a longer horizon, like 5 years or something?
So this was when we negotiated this with Capital Area Preservation. This is their normal, kind of their normal run-up time. They did run into some more unusual issues with the Upchurch Williams house. So we probably would bring a similar agreement to council, but we would be in consultation with our partners at CAP when we do this.
Okay.
All right, I want to make a motion to approve the resolution to forego the collection of any interest due to under the loan agreement between the town of Apex and CAP related to the closing and the birthday party on Sunday, not the fake party.
I'll second.
Motion second, discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. We have no closed session, no work session, no other business. Therefore, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Yeah, congrats. It's gonna be awesome.
I was the way I did this for the I was like, Gary, I'm like, he's Gary Roth. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Gary, thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming. Yeah, appreciate it. Gary Roth, Gary Roth.
Just want me to come back?
There are two Gary Roths in here.
You know,
I'm sorry, what was that?
I can't see that being a defensive position.
Okay.
Enjoyed it.
Hi. Yeah, same.
Oh, honey.
Oh, yes, a lot of great things happen.
It's active. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I won't. It was just. How are you? Oh, I didn't know that was you.
I look a lot different when I went here.
Well, I said you're gonna catch up with me in Facebook. I love it so far. Yes, I love it. But you know all about that. You had a lot of years in that world, but yeah, that is good to see in your son in action.
Yeah, he's been wanting to for a while, and glad he can make it.
We don't know each other.
He hasn't trained me.
This is my friend.
What? We were friends.
I think we've had a couple things fly on the radar a little bit, like that this thing and maybe the.
I'll tell everyone I said
Did you get a chance to see anything we had near Walmart? That one, I think, didn't have as much opposition as I thought it would. I thought it'd be more like this one back then, kind of flew the radar on that one too. So, so I'm not sure if it's information lacking or if it's just people, they're not that into. It's not right beside their backyard. It's not as into it, maybe. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, my pleasure. Like I said, but I'm happy to do it.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'll have a good evening.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Where is he?
Yeah. You did great.
Yes, you did great.
Well, you did really good. The more you do it, the better you do. I was talking to our town manager this morning, and we were wondering about, I need to get feedback from the right council. But if they agree, we were wondering about
He's at UNC Charlotte.
yes, that so what do you think? Like, it would be like an event, right? So, because you said this morning, it's like, was there an event? Like, thank you so much. Think about that, and we talk to
I was driving by it, and my wife, who has a good eye for like design, and we we've been married for a long time, so we obviously not looking for venues, but she does a lot of wedding photographers, and it's like, yeah, there's a lot of venues to have the reception and the triangle in general, and especially when it's like outside. There's one on that Jinx Road, but
well, I think the thing is that there's not a lot of venues here, but there's a lot of venues in the triangle that aren't so I feel like having my experience to bring to the table, like it's really going to be a true check.
Yes, I know.
And I put so much thought into it.
Yeah, I was imagining the parking is going to be something like Angus Barn, where there's like trees and it's kind of all hidden back there. I was thinking.
And honestly, I mean, one of the big, let's say, I mean,
just a couple 2x4s. I want to see something over there. They might have to buy you a little bit there or something.
And then like, well, that would help me comparing on the inside.
Oh yeah, usually I can hear an echo when I try to look somewhere, but I didn't hear it tonight, so it must be.
I would like to see them. I would like to find a loophole and make them close it.
Thank you.
On the record of.
Yeah, definitely. So, I wish you luck with all that renovation and then the business. I'm sure. I mean that.
And the fact that
well, that pays for everything else, probably, right? The weddings.
You have to keep the train going, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you can do what your soul feels like you should be doing. Giving back to the community.
Good.
It's going to be awesome. Happy birthday! I'm in.
Hey, Donna.
It went well. Thank you.
Nice sign, by the way, out there with the event.
Oh, yeah.
It looked great. It looks great. I love it. And I'm sure hopefully I'll make the events. I saw the email today and I was like, yes, it sounded great. So I'm excited.
No problem. Thanks for coming out today. Hope we can get that meeting set up. You did great. You nailed it. Nailed it. Yeah. Yeah, I know how you feel. You got it done, so.
Can we get out of here or back here? Let me get out of the way.
Oh, the fish everywhere. Here.
May I move the red part? All right, you guys. So move that just a little bit, and I'm gonna take two, and then when Brett's done taking a picture. Hold on. Move it, Brett. Move it. Is that all right? Family thing? Okay. Hold on.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, hold on. We're waiting. Okay, Brett. All right, ready? I'm gonna take two. 1, 2, 3. Very nice. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, guys. I love what you have to say. Oh my gosh.
Avery County probably has that. Pick one of those. Which we're going to.
Well, it's nice to meet you. Come more often. Yeah,
I'll try to.
Your birthday or something?
I came down here I came back and forth.
I'll see you at least once.
Yeah, it's just a bad day. I live in Asheville, so it's pretty far. And I'm working full time. So. Still working. But hey, keep it up. Nice to meet you. Good luck.
All right, let's go. Oh, all right, yeah.
Use the money to, help the.
One or another.
Let me know if you need
We were
one.
talking about how the work. You know, we give grants.
That's amazing.
So that they would put some sponsorship opportunities for music. And what we would do, music fest has always been geared towards kids, Apex area.
What's going on? Break it up, break it up.
So my
It's out of control over here.
This is a great project. Anytime we can find a good use for homes or reserving, it really aligns a lot with the values of people in this town. So it was.
Yeah, no, it just was really all very kismet how everything came together, and yeah, I'm just really excited. I'm excited to get started. So literally, I'm going to meet with the planning department next week so we can have a pre-application meeting. Hopefully, we'll have initial site plan up by March. So, yeah, I need to get in for next season, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully the permitting process won't be terrible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me know how that goes.
Thank you.
I've heard mixed things about the permitting process in
They
Apex.
said it's about 6 months, so that would put us October. So if we're probably looking at like hopefully opening by April and May of next year. So just with the construction and whatnot, I mean it's a big project. One of the first things I did was contact a general contractor, and then they had already had estimates, so I was able to actually look at several estimates and whatnot. So hopefully it'll run smoothly, but I'm excited.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for taking this on.
Oh, you have no idea how much really bugged me out. So we close on Friday, so.
Mine isn't yet.
All right, here you go.
Good, I'm right. Thank you.
I really do.
Bye. Good luck.
How's it going, man?
Going well. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Historic sign out by your house.
We're actually, our house is, back in the 1800s, there was a group of 5 families, 5 to 7 families, that moved down to this part of the world in the friendship up going Kelly Road towards the Little area.
Loud and clear.
Because the tobacco mosaic virus attacked the plants and roots, and they needed a more fertile ground. So they moved down here. And our house and the house that's going to be demolished on Kelly Road, and then the Cronk's old house that Joey Ione bought was now for rent. Those 3 are the last of the existing ones. And ours is the last one that's still a quote-unquote farm.
Goodbye, Michael.
You know, maybe we need a county permit that kind of matches.
Okay, you too.
And
Wherever you happen to be.
And I understand from...
Well, there you go. That's awesome. Oh my God.
No, I understand from that. Get your yeah, I understand from that aspect. The reason.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
But
Yeah, that's great.
I appreciate all that. You're not going to go out and
Giving us a kick in the butt to get it to go.
Appreciate you listening. Yeah, man. We got to listen to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Take care of that pretty lady there, will you?
Next week. It's a long-range service area?
It's a long-range urban service area.
Right. I was thinking area subject to the interlocal agreements between.
Yeah, and that's basically what it is. There was none until the interlocal agreement.
I was gonna send you a text.
I will.
Say you were.
Yes, sir. Very well.
I gotta get home.
Any way we can help. Like I said, I talked
Good night. Yeah, good night, Drew. Good night, Cole. Good night. Bye, everyone.
I wanted to make sure I had their time off before I spoke to you. Yeah, we're all on board however we can.
9 o'clock is ready to go. He would have been here, except that he had to go to a town council meeting down at the coast. He's on the board on HOA down there.
Oh.
So, you know how it is.
It's not yours, is it? No, sir. That is Brett Gant's father. Who's standing in front of us, or sitting in front of us. Well, as always, thank you. Any way we can